out there, but all you're seeing is the shadow, and it's called quasi-projection. And maybe some of the UAPs are not even, they're here, but they're not actually from out there.
I cannot show you a tesseract because I and you are trapped in 3 dimensions. But what I can show you is the shadow in 3 dimensions of a 4-dimensional hypercube or tesseract. This is it.
Like if it exists outside of 4D, time, space, or whatever. Say this is, you have a 2D universe and this is a 3D object. If it intersects, you're just going to see a sliver of it. So you'll just see a disc. And that would make sense, I think, in 2 ways. One is that a lot of people that seem to see crafts and sometimes, quote unquote, go inside of them, the inside is bigger than the outside. So Jacques Vallée describes a woman in San Jose seeing this, flying saucer. She walks in, she's in a movie theater all of a sudden.
There was one case in good old San Jose. A woman had seen something over her house, and it was a big disc. And then I say, well, when you went inside, you said, there was this beam, and the beam took you on a staircase. I say, where did the staircase go? Well, the staircase went up the side of this big round room. I say, how would you compare it? It's like a movie house, like an amphitheater. I said, that's bigger than your house.
Welcome to Summoner's Rift. Seconds until minions spawn. Minions have spawned. First blood. The enemy has been slain.
Aw, my hair's fading already, and I'm fresh out of blood.
This is a massive fucking... Alright, well, that guy was lagging. I did not need to buy pots.
When people talk about their first language, why isn't body language an option?
Free.
been slain. An enemy has been slain.
Not choosing a choice. No. Yes.
Your team has destroyed an inhibitor.
Now that I think fighters are honest.
Dominating. An ally has been slain.
Talk about their first language. Why isn't public?
team has destroyed an inhibitor. An enemy has been slain. An enemy has been slain. An ally has been slain.
I don't lose control. I lose control. Who doesn't have to be fun?
Your team has destroyed an turret. An ally has been slain.
Already? And I'm fresh out of blood.
Enemy killing spree. Shut down.
My stomach's louder than my mouth. Let's go again.
A summoner has disconnected. A summoner has reconnected.
Did it! Failed the same way everyone else does. Average. What were the principles of strength again? Look the enemy in the eyes, hit them before they hit you, and be the last one standing?
A summoner has disconnected. Shut down.
So much easier. Now that I think about it, fighters are honest, alive.
Execute. You have been slain. Your team has destroyed a turret. Your team has destroyed a turret. Your team has destroyed an inhibitor. The enemy's inhibitor is respawning soon. A summoner has disconnected. Defeat.
Why is the inside bigger than the outside?
And so this is a constant sort of, again, if we're looking for patterns, and that's like a good way to kind of theorize, you know, that would make sense if it's this shadow casting sort of thing.
And that almost sounds like a physical translation from lower to higher dimensional space. That seems to be what's going on there, and I don't know if we have a good framework on how to smoothly do something like that. I don't even know.
I think if anyone would know about aliens on Earth, it would probably be me.
He's topping on the alien bandwagon as of the last 2 days, by the way. He did, and then he goes, somebody should win PSYOP of the Year award or something. So I don't know what it's like. What do you think, man? What's your take?
He was just riding the first tweet of like, I'm not gonna say they're aliens, but like.
I'm not sure what's going on.
I think he's probably a little pissed because he's using chemical propulsion.
Yeah, exactly. Combustion-based like propulsion.
Yeah, come on, we need the Howard Hughes of our generation to get access to the good stuff.
I've always found it fascinating that America's real-life Iron Man, its most impressive industrialist, seems to be so sure of the fact that we're in a simulation.
The odds that we're in base reality is 1 in billions.
But doesn't like entertaining any possible sightings of aliens. If we're in a simulation, why aren't you doing any speculating as to who simulated us?
I mean, if they show up, I'm like, great, okay, now this is new information.
The conventional story, especially after the Copernican revolution, is that the Earth is a lucky accident that allows for life.
You do have sort of weird aspects of reality, like the anthropic principle. Like the idea of Planck's constant was slightly different. Hydrogen bonded with oxygen in a different way that didn't form these perfect crystal structures. Ice wouldn't float above water. Usually solids sink below liquids, and we wouldn't have a habitable Earth. And so you have all these sort of things in physics that if they were slightly different, we wouldn't have this sort of Goldilocks, perfect habitable zone.
Oh, yeah, I mean, Earth's like very finely tuned, right? The temperature gradient is just enough. Right?
Is that a coincidence, or did aliens set this up?
I don't know.
You could even think of like Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, where you can't measure position and momentum at the same time, as like a computational caching function. Something.
Oh, interesting.
So you can't compute
like
everything.
Yeah, your RAM's not that good, so.
And maybe if we are in a simulation, our perceptive capabilities were artificially limited by the simulators. We only see between 400 and 700 nanometers of the electromagnetic wave spectrum. We only hear certain frequencies. That's why dog whistles are inaudible to humans. If we really wanted to create safe artificial general intelligence, we might initially experiment with artificial life so limited in its perception that it doesn't even know we exist. So it definitely can't hurt us. Forward-looking infrared caught the famous Tic Tac video in 2004. What if we had infrared sensors, or for that matter, gravity wave detectors in our pockets? How many more sightings would we have? That explains why UFOs are disproportionately picked up by military bases. It's the robust multi-sensory detection that you find on those bases that makes all the difference.
There is no understanding of alien visits that has them only visit restricted Navy airspace to be picked up by pilots.
It's an observer and collection bias issue where you have all the eyeballs and all the sensors in those areas.
Sure, that's a good point.
You know, if you were to do an activity-based intelligence across the globe, if we actually could have an open and honest kind of collection system, I think we'd probably see some hot spots that don't even make any sense. You know, I don't like throwing shade, but like Neil deGrasse Tyson, right?
Oh, yeah.
He's made up his mind. I've read his tweets, and I'm like, dude, you have a PhD in physics? Where's your curiosity? I can't even believe.
Yeah. There's no evidence that would convince an authentic skeptic.
I have credentials too, and I'm happy to go toe-to-toe with you. If he wants to debate me, I'd be fine with that. You know, when I started studying physics in college, and I became an Intel guy, and I got briefed a lot of programs, I figured, I would know if it's a thing. And I kind of ascribed to the Enrico Fermi thing where, wouldn't it be obvious when they just be flying around and they wouldn't care and they would just land and say hello.
Yeah.
But that's like an overly simplistic thought.
Humanistic too, very humanistic.
Humanistic, you're assuming that they have the same kind of intent as us. You assume they operate in the electromagnetic spectrum that we can observe normally. And then also, you're assuming that they would want this kind of open, obvious kind of interaction, and are not doing cover concealment techniques where they're, obfuscating their activity because maybe they're, observing us for some purpose. Or what if they're von Neumann probes, right?
Do you guys know von Neumann probes?
No.
Von Neumann replicators?
Which is like self-replicating tech that's disposable in nature if you're trying to send something out simple and engineered to explore the cosmos.
And there's always a question of like, what was the first self-replicating organism? Like, I think the big mystery is, how does chemistry turn into biology? And we have these people that say, oh, it was just this primordial soup, and you had all these chemicals kind of like floating around, and they've done experiments like this and never been able to recreate life through those experiments. And it's a really open question, like, how did life form? And I think it's probably much more trippy and interesting than like just a chemical soup. Just the chemicals happen to bond in a certain way. It's a happy accident.
And Crick's view was that DNA could not have emerged accidentally from the primeval soup on this planet in just 100 million years. It needed much longer he still bought into the primeval soup idea, but not on this planet.
Yes.
What he came down to was that there must have been some other planet, somewhere else, where a primeval soup had existed, and there had been enough time for DNA to emerge from the accidental bumping together of molecules. That's, by the way, something I'm a bit skeptical of anywhere.
There was actually a French kind of evolutionary theorist and philosopher named Henri Bergson. He thought the sun was somehow essential to evolution. If you think about it,
that makes sense.
It's mutations.
Yeah.
You need mutation. You need genetic mutations for evolution to occur.
It's a radiological, it's at least putting out ultraviolet, so.
Totally. Why are we worried about a Japanese nuclear spill? What happened at Fukushima and Chernobyl? You had an acceleration of evolution due to radiation.
Maybe the sun is an extremely sophisticated nuclear fusion reactor that powers the Earth, and the Earth's electromagnetic field was simulated to support life. Astronauts often have to take Schumann resonance machines up with them to space to mimic the electromagnetic field of the Earth. Otherwise, their bodies often malfunction.
If you put a frog embryo in a Faraday cage, it does not develop normally. And then if you can change the cell gradient of like a tadpole, where you've severed the arm of the tadpole, to the cell gradients of the head cells, and you can grow a chimeric two-headed tadpole. And so there's something around kind of the electromagnetic field that is orthogonal and maybe even upstream of DNA in terms of morphology.
Yeah, because I've done experiments too with plant growth around high powerful Wi-Fi routers, and then actually they don't grow right.
No.
It's like it's kind of concerning. I think about the Wi-Fi in my house. I'm like, oh man, am I like cooking myself slowly or something?
Dave ran this morning in a llama race.
Like this. Whole lot of tradition.
What's the name of the llama? Playboy. Playboy. I think the name of the llama was Boy.
Holy shit!
You recognize me? This is Stefan ATV. Represent.
Over the past days, you shared with us that you were diagnosed to be on the autism spectrum. How has this served you in your life and in your career, and how has it hindered you?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know, that I was autistic until I was like in my early 30s. So, I mean, it served me well in the government because I was super good at, doing intel and like, Dave, we want you to target this facility. Okay, you have 6 months, figure out everything, and of course I do, and it's, that was very good, but I think especially if you're trying to maintain relationships and stuff, and how to read people's emotions and how to show your own emotions, because autists, especially if you're deeper in the spectrum, when you get Asperger's and that kind of stuff, you don't know how to even present your emotions in a way to a partner or a spouse or whatever.
He would come home and tell me like general stuff, and I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, there's probably aliens. Like, that makes sense.
Unfortunately, Dave can't talk about the backlash he's received from inside the government because of an ongoing investigation. But a good example of a pretty despicable marginalization attempt from the outside was an article written a few weeks after the hearing by The Intercept. The article describes Dave's hospitalization back in 2018, an episode of alcohol consumption and suicidal ideation that led to a 911 call. But the article failed to mention any of the factors that led to this incident.
Yeah, definitely experienced some really nuts stuff.
Not only has Dave been very open with us and other media about his PTSD from combat experience, and having a close friend die while on duty.
I had a friend of mine who died doing the same stuff I was, 6 months later, going to the same locations.
He's also discussed all of the suffering that's resulted from that experience and the proactive techniques he's used to heal from that trauma.
So like EMDR therapy, HRV breath work, all that stuff, I was not a believer, but holy crap, at least it worked for me. And I highly recommend anybody that has issues with that, maybe try some of that stuff, because it seems kind of non-traditional, but it was very valuable.
Critiquing the substance of Dave's argument, saying that they're high level or secondhand, that's all within the public and media's right. But this was a clear cheap shot, a low blow, and one that I suspect was probably driven by a political ulterior motive, concealing the truth.
People like send me memes or like TikToks. I'm like, yep, that's mine.
Have you, in your time in the Navy, have you ever seen something that you couldn't explain or something that...
We have a cabin up in the mountains, and our former neighbor, he was so interested in UFOs, and he moved to Roswell, New Mexico because he wanted to be close. He claimed he did see something.
Another question that I always get is like, why is it always an American thing? Like, why is this always happening in America?
The phenomenon's global, 100%. Like, I mean, you look at aerial schools.
Welcome to Summoner's Rift.
Everyone's got a gallery of their own. Mine's just on the outside.
30 seconds until minions spawn.
Aw, my hair's fading already? And I'm fresh out of blood.
Minions have spawned.
Life the hunger of death? When people talk about their first
Let's go full clear.
An enemy has been slain.
Bot lane doing work.
Not choosing a choice. No. Yes. I might be a weapon, but now only I wield my scepter.
Fuck.
An ally has been slain. Turret plating will soon fall. destroyed a turret.
What happened to too much control or not enough?
Destroyed a turret.
Isn't this fun? I might
summoner has disconnected. An enemy has been slain. You have slain an enemy.
Dang it. Forgot to ask if I could have this blood. Here's how nice. Very soon. Always wanted to try because they're crying for food.
An ally has been slain. An enemy has been slain.
Could use some more self-control. Like me.
summoner has reconnected. An ally has been slain.
Moving on forward.
Enemy has been slain.
Russians have reported stuff. The Chinese have what they call the Journal UFO Research, which is a published periodical in the People's Republic of China. And you got to remember, you know, the CCP does not allow fringe beliefs, and you know, it's basically tacitly endorsed and allowed to since I think the late 90s, I want to say.
Do you think the three-body problem, kind of the dark forest analogy of aliens, was maybe sort of a form of soft disclosure from the Chinese government?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know for sure, but they've allowed this sci-fi series to be published by this Chinese author that's like pretty trippy.
Really?
And I don't know, maybe that's a way for the Chinese government to acclimatize the populace. You do note in the South China Morning Post, I want to say it was June 2021, and they had an article like, oh yeah, we have a UAP task force too. We're using AI/ML to look at UAP sightings. And that's really been their own overt messaging on UAP, at least to an English-speaking kind of audience. So, oh yeah, we understand it's a problem. We have a task force too.
Isn't what's happening in Ukraine kind of an argument against the practical application of these technologies? Because if either side wanted it, it kind of definitively win, and you had this kind of faster than light travel thing.
Well, you'd have to be willing to reveal your ace in the hole tech, because once you use it, then you burn it, and then now everybody knows.
Gotcha.
Perhaps this is a good time to talk about the frame of the public debate on UFOs, which is frustratingly stupid and simplistic. It's frozen between a sensationalist, indiscriminate belief in everything and smug, elitist dismissiveness. The whole conversation is basically, is this a psyop or is this real? The answer is it's both. Those two things aren't mutually exclusive. In fact, if the phenomena is real, there are more likely to be psyops surrounding it. And those psyops are going to be more effective if the phenomena is real. And yeah, if there are vehicles in the sky running circles around American state-of-the-art fighter jets, do you not think the government would try to get in front of that narrative and at times use it for its own purposes? We know the Air Force tried to marginalize UFOs with Blue Book, but later in 1979, the Air Force drove a man crazy by playing up his belief in aliens.
Paul Benowitz, I'm sure are you familiar with him?
I've heard about it, yeah.
He, saw some strange craft activity and didn't know what it was. And Richard Doty, who was an Air Force disinfo guy, was kind of assigned to screw him up mentally.
So we know UFOs are part PSYOP. That's old news. The real question is this only a PSYOP? Because if it is, it cuts against everything we know about our pretty dysfunctional government. It's basically the best PSYOP of all time. It runs across government agencies that don't always get along, presidents on both sides of the aisle, fighter pilots and radar operators who adhere to a culture of humility, and of course, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of average civilians. The null hypothesis that this is purely a PSYOP is almost harder to defend than just admitting the existence of non-human intelligence. But you shouldn't blindly trust me, or Dave Grush for that matter. Do your own research.
Talk about, I mean, you have people like Steven Pinker who are like, this is the best we've ever had it. I think that's BS. So maybe violence is at an all-time low, but it's because we have nukes now. So any war is mutually assured destruction. And so if there's a world beyond the material world, and that can somehow be accessed or communicated with in any possible way, it might be sort of a crazy Hail Mary, but you got to throw the Hail Mary now. Yeah. You can't run the ball.
Is it something you would like to say directly to someone?
On the program?
Yeah, I know if you're on the program, I understand empathetically, you know, the risks, what you put yourself through. We're trying to create a time where we can get this out there, recruit better people, hopefully protect those who want to go forward. If you want to go forward, there is a legal process, either through PPD-19, if it's an intel thing, DOD, there's other inspector generals. You do have the right to go directly to Congress, and then of course some of the senior leaders that have known about this stuff, and I understand they were in positions where they had to make decisions just like anybody else, and they're not at the top of the pyramid. I think the time is right to cement maybe your final legacy and to help out, even though I know there'll be some admittance of, you know, maybe decisions you've made that you wish in the past maybe you didn't make, but I think it's time to move forward, and I think we'll be stronger as a nation and as a world. I think it's going to enhance national security, enhance peer competition policing, so people aren't doing things unethical and immoral. If everything's in secret, everybody can get away with things that might be illegal, unethical, immoral, and hold our adversaries accountable publicly if this is a thing that we acknowledge. And once again, nuclear physics, broadly studied. Nuclear weapons development, that's classified. So that's all I have to say. It just come on.
Do you think in some ways UFOs are like a Rorschach test? And the way I mean that is that in some, you know, you could use them as an auspice to sort of clamp down and create one world government or something, and create, you know, extra surveillance and say, you know, this is this big threat, and, you know, we're not at the top of the food chain and they're apex predators, and, you know, we've got to be careful, watch your step. Or they could be incredibly libertarian, because it's like, actually, you know, terrestrial governments aren't as powerful maybe as we thought that they were. And, you know, I think it could go in either direction.
Yeah, or it's just like they're just simply waiting until we like generally care about that. We just like, we look at it and we're like, oh, that's interesting. And then we go about our day and then we don't even integrate the phenomenon into our lives.
In terms of people's reaction to this, look, I'm angry about possible white-collar crime, especially this, you know, people possibly being driven crazy or to their death. That's horrible.
Yeah.
And then I also think on some level people are too focused on government kind of recrimination.
It is time for transparency. 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 Transparency.
And not on the fact that this is the nature of reality. These things might make you a biblical literalist.
Ezekiel saw the wheel, baby. First chapter. I'm with you.
Do you believe that the phenomenon is the next big, great?
That was a level 2 gank.
slain. Enemy double kill. An enemy has been slain. Your team has destroyed a turret.
I might be a weapon, but now only
Your team has destroyed a turret. Enemy rampage. Killing spree. An ally has been slain. An enemy has been slain.
way too hard about fighting. Just point the strongest soldier toward the biggest enemy. Almost worked for me.
An enemy is unstoppable.
I don't lose control. I free myself.
An ally has been slain. Your turret has been destroyed.
Ears have a nice mouth. Very cute.
An ally
has been slain. Your team has destroyed a turret. Rampage. Your turret has been destroyed.
Talk about their first language. Why isn't body language?
An ally has been slain. Enemy double kill. Your turret has been destroyed.
Nature's more out of control than I am. Not polite to nibble on Everyone's got a pillory of their own. Mine's just on the outside.
Shut down. Rampage. Double kill. Shut down.
Stomach's louder than my mouth.
Ally has been slain.
When I cut loose, I feel, hear, and see everything. I can feel
An ally has been slain. Your turret has been destroyed. An enemy has been slain. Ally has been slain. Your team has destroyed a turret. team has destroyed a turret.
religion in the world.
Yeah,
I think
basically.
the phenomenon has probably already influenced all the other religions already, so it's just, maybe we're looking at the source code.
Yeah, if you're looking at the source code.
We're at the graphic user interface level, it's like IP header, and we're finally getting into the information flow.
In her book American Cosmic, Diana Pasulka makes the pretty convincing case that many seemingly divine contact experiences in the past could have actually been what we now call UFO experiences. Just take the case of St. Francis of Assisi. His close confidant, Brother Leo, documents the experience, describing sound and fury creating atmospheric sparks, a spinning disc, telepathic communication between Francis and the disc, and then Francis is wounded by rays of light. Francis interprets these hand wounds as the stigmata of Christ, but Pasulka speculates that maybe this was just radiation damage from a UFO experience.
You know, I was reasonably religious, but nothing like crazy, kind of average. Studied physics, I became kind of agnostic. I was like, I don't know about all this kind of woo-woo, stuff that the church espouses and stuff. And then, oddly enough, I've kind of come full circle in some sense where there is this higher sentience. There seems to be, I think we're created beings in some manner, whether it be some panspermia from little g gods or big G gods. I think about the people, the journey I had, and the most random people that I've known that were placed in my life like 14 years ago, shut the door in my office at NGA and were like, look, dude. And, they started telling me all this stuff that and they brought these like crazy intel reports. I guess I was kind of the right guy that was chosen to do this thing, I guess. But, so yeah, I've come full circle in my belief system.
For me, it's inspiring because it's like this idea that it's just, eat, drink, and be merry or whatever.
Yeah.
You live, you pay taxes, you work a job, and then you die.
Yeah, that's meaning to life. And just like the Vatican Observatory saying, yeah, we're like cool with other sentient life that shows God paints like a, broad brush. And
that's pretty cool.
And the Catholic Church is very accepting on that. And it just shows, God's providence and God's creative powers if there's actually other interesting sentience besides us. It's like, what was it in the movie Contact? It's a total waste of space if it's just us, right? It's like the famous line in the movie. Carl Sagan was a great communicator, probably one of the best.
Yeah. He also met a lot with Kit Green towards the end of his career. It was a CIA guy very into UFOs.
Yeah, you were telling me that. I didn't know that. So
you can count on Jesse to tell you these weird facts.
I thought I had a lot of useless knowledge, but this guy's like, it's not useless, but it's pretty intense.
It's pretty useless until now.
Yeah. This is like the mega interview. We're covering every potential trippy / esoteric / conspiratorial thing at once.
This justifies me being paranoid in my room, reading about weird shit and being criticized by friends and colleagues for years.
Yeah, this is more you educating me than me saying anything for some interview or whatever right now. So it's kind of cool. Yeah, I'm always learning something when I'm talking to you, and sometimes I'm like hanging up the phone, you call me, and I'm like, I don't know about this guy. Like,
he's going crazy.
I think he's like really going deep. Where I think he's losing his grip. No, I was kidding.
Oh my God.
That was a crazy hummingbird?
That was a crazy hummingbird. Maybe it was a DARPA spy cam or something.
Oh man, that's a good sign, bro.
It's just my mind versus yours. It brings science and religion together in a way that these two things have been sort of cleaved or bifurcated since the Enlightenment. This could possibly reconcile those two things, which would be absolutely amazing, where you could read the Bible and you could say some of this stuff could actually happen in the context of aliens.
Panspermia, creationism, this might actually prove certain religious texts and what they've espoused with little g gods. And at least for me, spiritually, at least my belief system, it certainly opened my eyes to the universe is not clockwork. Everything we see in our day-to-day life is not everything that exists. And if there's truly other sentient intelligences, it just inspires my curiosity. Like, I'd like to know what their belief systems are and how, and maybe we'll find out that matches with ours, and it actually bolsters our you know.
Maybe we can ascend to the, per your video in the Berkshires. What, you want to repeat it, Amar?
Yeah, I mean, the ending result is the universe ignoring us.
Because we're not at their level yet. We haven't reached that height of awareness into society as a people.
Is this an opportunity for us to examine ourselves, to figure out why we have not been a part of this bigger ecosystem?
Interesting friend visiting us as well.
An alien visit? Non-human intelligence?
Non-human intelligence. We have evidence of non-human intelligence.
One of the most powerful witness testimonies that I've seen in all the interviews that I've consumed over the past 3 years was one of the girls from the aerial school case when Dr. John Mack was interviewing her, and he's trying to understand how the telepathy was working, and then she goes out of nowhere, "I think in space there's no love, but down here there is."
Well, that's like the near-death experience is like a Proof of Heaven by Eben Alexander, medical doctor. Yeah, he has a very interesting scientific outlook of his near-death, and that was like this overarching loving energy something when he ascended to this. It sounded like another dimensional plane, if you will. He had basically fasciitis of the brain, where it was he was probably going to be brain dead if he even survived, but he miraculously came back and he was totally fine. But all this knowledge and all this stuff he experienced.
Well, that's a super common thing in alien abduction experiences, whether it's the aerial school or Commander George Hoover of the Navy actually talked about this. Aliens often come down and they say, "You don't know how powerful you are. You don't know how amazing and powerful you are." And in a lot of mystery rituals, like Eleusinian mystery rituals and others, you experience sort of noesis, or it's often accompanied by kind of a near-death experience or something. But you experience knowledge of your primordial soul, and you get this sort of loving state, and then you come back down, and there is this sort of, a la Jesus, translation function issue, where he was known to speak in riddles and mysteries. There's a great book actually called Flatland by Sir Edwin Abbott.
That's super classic.
In the late 19th century, where it's like if you were a 3D person speaking to people in Flatland on a 2D plane, or Plato's cave, you see the light, you come down, you can't really tell people, and then you get persecuted.
Well, yeah, he said he had this knowledge, he understood it when he was in that plane. But when he came back and was trying to verbalize it and write it down, he could not find the human words to translate it. It's almost like our symbol rate is too slow to communicate the information effectively.
We're living in a very interesting time.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see where it goes, and you're playing a massive part in it. So I appreciate everything. Your service, just on a fundamental level, and you're a real example of a modern Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and you're not doing it in this sort of totally reckless wrecking ball sort of way. You're going through the proper processes and doing things legally, but also you have agency, and you're doing it strategically, time after time again. People just get neutered when they're in government, and you are doing a big thing. So it's cool for young people to see.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you for everything, man.
Yeah.
We talked about a lot of shit.
Ladies and gentlemen, Neil Armstrong.
Today we have with us a group of students among America's best. There are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers.
Three men who previously served in the military are set to speak publicly about what they saw in the sky and heard behind closed doors.
All right, one more.
Guy in the white tan suit.
They have let in 15 people from the public.
There is David Grush, who's a former intelligence official. He has...
Triple kill. An ally has been slain.
God, why is he fucking choosing? He just fucking farm.
Enemy has been slain. Has been slain. You have been slain. An enemy has been slain. ally has been slain. Ally has been slain.
Yeah.
Pasok ka ngayon? Ha?
Wala.
Bukas wala yun.
got
Shut
that.
down. Your team has destroyed a turret.
Oh no.
Double kill. The enemy's inhibitor has responded soon.
People think way too hard about fighting. Especially the strongest soldiers or the biggest enemies.
Your team has destroyed an inhibitor. An enemy has been slain. Your team has destroyed a turret. Has been slain.
knowledge of a covert government program to recover.
We're living in a very interesting time.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see where it goes,
Yeah.
and you're playing a massive part in
Yeah.
it. So I appreciate everything. Your service, just on a fundamental level, you know, and you're a real example of like a modern Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and you're not doing it in this sort of totally reckless wrecking ball sort of way. You're going through the proper processes and doing things legally, but also you have agency, and you're doing it strategically, time after time again. People just get like neutered when they're in government, and you are doing a big thing. So that's it's cool for young people to see.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you for everything, man.
Yeah.
We talked about a lot of shit.
Ladies and gentlemen, Neil Armstrong.
Today we have with us a group of students among America's best. There are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers.
A new book set in Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan universe called Weapons Grade delves into the classified world of hypersonic aviation and brings the fan favorite SR-71 Blackbird out of retirement. Now, this novel may be pure fiction, but the background of its author, Don Bentley, a former Apache helicopter pilot turned FBI counterintelligence specialist, is anything but. In fact, this book brings so much realism to the page that legendary SR-71 pilot Bob Baylor is even one of its characters. I managed to get my hands on an early copy of this book and then sat down with the book's author and that very SR-71 pilot to talk about how hypersonic aviation is depicted in the story and where it's headed in real life. So this week's gonna be a bit different. Let's talk hypersonics with aviator turned author Don Bentley, and here's some mind-blowing real-life SR-71 stories from General Bob Baylor while we're at it. I'm Alex Hollings, and this is a special edition of Air Power. If you've been following this channel for a while, or you're familiar with my written work, then you may already know that I have been delving deep into hypersonic programs since at least 2017. Right here on YouTube, we've covered everything from the hypersonic missiles nations are rushing into service to touring Hermeus's factory, where they're hard at work developing what may be the world's first publicly acknowledged reusable hypersonic aircraft. And to my absolute surprise and delight, the author of Weapons Grade, Don Bentley, is a fan of this series, which may be the craziest thing I've ever told you, at least as far as I'm concerned. And now, after spending my evenings reading through this book, following the escapades of Jack Ryan Jr. as he battles mercenaries and works to prevent Iran from fielding nuclear weapons, I can honestly say that that feeling is absolutely mutual. Now, for those who may be unsure as to why Don Bentley would be writing in the Tom Clancy universe, it's because Tom Clancy passed away in 2013, and since then, the franchise mantle has fallen to a number of other authors. And to give you a bit of my own personal bias here, I believe Don Bentley is the best among them. Weapons Grade is Bentley's fourth outing in the Clancyverse, covering the stories of Jack Ryan Jr. as he follows in the world-saving footsteps of his father, the legendary Jack Ryan, who, in this universe, is now the president. This story follows the younger Ryan as his good intentions once again thrust him headlong into the high-stakes world of espionage, mercenaries, gunfights, and in what may be my favorite technological addition since the Hunt for Red October's Caterpillar drive, state-of-the-art hypersonic aviation. With Iran on the verge of a nuclear breakout, the job of taking out the nation's hidden enrichment facility ultimately falls to America's highly classified and as yet unproven hypersonic drone dubbed Corvair. Now, in order to accurately depict these covert Mach speed missions, Bentley reached out to legendary aviator Air Force General Bob Baylor. And it's really easy to see why. General Baylor not only has more than 5,000 hours logged across 65 different aircraft as an Air Force test pilot, but he also flew the SR-71 operationally before becoming the commanding general of the Air Force Command and Control and Intelligence Surveillance and Reconnaissance Center. In other words, General Bob Baylor is one of the world's foremost authorities on the fastest and highest flying military aircraft ever to take to the skies. When the story calls for pulling an SR-71 Blackbird out of retirement to support the testing and eventually to chase down America's secret hypersonic drone, Bob Lorenzo Baylor becomes more than a consultant for this story. Bentley actually based the legendary Blackbird pilot in the book on Baylor himself. And according to the general, Bentley's efforts to bring realism to this story really paid off. Here's what he had to say about it.
And I wanted to make sure that Alex heard this about, what was my...
Welcome to Summoner's Rift. Seconds until minions spawn.
I might be a weapon, but now only I wield myself. What were the principles of strength again? Look the enemy in the eye, hit them.
Minions have spawned. First blood.
Not choosing a choice. No. Yes. I'm free.
Defeat.
My favorite part of the book and what was my least favorite part. The favorite part was undoubtedly the fact that it made me feel like I was back in the SR-71 again. I mean, it made my heart feel good. And I think that the Habu brothers will get the same feeling out of that. And I want to thank you for doing that. The part that I didn't like most was at the end of the book, I didn't get invited to go to the White House.
The story follows America's highly classified efforts to field a reusable hypersonic aircraft built upon very real elements found in a variety of today's most advanced and sometimes highly classified defense programs. Bentley's hypersonic aircraft, the Corvair, is a Mach 5 Plus reconnaissance and strike platform that combines elements of Lockheed Martin's SR-72 program, the Air Force Research Lab's Mayhem program, and maybe most notable of all, our friends at Hermeus, who are hoping to begin flight tests of their hypersonic aircraft in the coming year. And that is not by happenstance. In fact, Don found his way to contacting General Baylor thanks to Hermeus.
So for me, I'm a huge fan of the work the Hermeus folks are doing. In fact, I found Bob originally because he was on this fascinating Hermeus podcast. And if you haven't seen it, you need to. It's an hour and a half of Bob and an RSO telling flight stories. It's just incredible about the SR-71. But there's this odd shift, partly driven by the war on terror, in that for the last 20 years we've been fighting not a near peer force that is mostly, you could look at Afghanistan and say originally, they were cavemen with AK-47s and we had a technology overmatch, which is true. But then what you had is some platforms that were designed for near peer fights, like the F-14 in the beginning, the F-22 later, that were trying to reinvent themselves, if you will, to be relevant in the war on terror. So you had the F-14 turn into a bombcat. You had the F-22 actually trying to do kind of a ground attack mode. Well, what's interesting from a hypersonics platform is what that showed us is the importance of being able to act on intelligence before it goes stale. So if you're chasing a high value target and you know where that person is and you either want to interdict them or you want to drop a bomb on his head, you have to be able to have something that is fast enough to be able to make that happen, almost in real time. And so that prompted another shift, among other things, back to hypersonic platforms, because what a hypersonic platform gives you the ability to do is go reach out and touch a target half a world away that you're not waiting for the flight time of a subsonic B-2 to be able to service. And so that was part of it for sure, looking at that. And certainly what drives that in my book is the Iranians achieving nuclear breakout again. And you have to make a decision to say, what are we going to do about that? And you have to do it in a time-sensitive manner. And so certainly the Hermes folks have a couple of, I think Dark Star and Quarter Horse are two of their vehicles that they're working on that would be hypersonic ones. But it really is, and Bob is going to address this, I'm sure, much better than me. It really is a shift back, because there was a period of time when you looked at like the Valkyrie, for instance, that people thought, hey, speed is the answer, speed is the answer. And then it shifted back to stealth. And now I do think there's a shift back to hypersonics again for some of the reasons I laid out.
Bentley's Corvette. Air is powered by a combined cycle turbofan scramjet propulsion system ripped right out of real life. This is the same type of propulsion system that allegedly powers Lockheed Martin's SR-72, as well as the Air Force Research Lab's Mayhem platform. And it's very similar in conceptual design to the Chimera engine that Hermeus is currently testing, though Hermeus is taking a slightly lower tech approach, leveraging a J85 turbojet engine in conjunction with a ramjet. Now functionally, a combined cycle turbojet ramjet like Hermeus's Chimera
Welcome to Summoner's Rift.
Enemies and oh, make a baby laugh.
30 seconds until minions spawn.
Nature's more out of control than I am. You don't have to fight. Just share.
Minions have spawned. First blood.
Of course! Mouths water because they're crying for food. Hold still. Let's have some tea.
Victory!
is very similar to a combined cycle turbofan scramjet like those being developed by the Air Force Research Lab. The primary difference in practical application is that a turbojet ramjet will probably be limited to speeds below Mach 6, whereas a turbofan scramjet could potentially even exceed Mach 10. A combined cycle engine of this kind has long been seen as the holy grail of hypersonic aviation, and for good reason. Conventional turbojet and turbofan engines are very well suited for accelerating aircraft from a dead stop all the way up to around Mach 3, thanks to that compressor fan they have behind the jet inlet that sucks air in to be mixed with fuel compressed and ignited for propulsion. But up beyond Mach 3, these types of engines really struggle to push enough air through the combustion process to continue accelerating in any kind of an efficient manner. Ramjets and scramjets, or supersonic combustion ramjets, on the other hand, have no compressor fan, or really any moving parts at all. These air-breathing jet engines rely on the pressure created by the inflow of air at high speeds for compression, before mixing that air with fuel and igniting it for propulsion out the back. As a result, these engines just can't function at a stop and are really inefficient at low speeds, but they come alive at speeds in excess of Mach 3 or so. This is one of the reasons these exotic propulsion systems have only been used in technology demonstrators and single-use weapons and are really inefficient at low speeds, but they come alive at speeds in excess of Mach 3 or so. This is one of the reasons these exotic propulsion systems have only been used in technology demonstrators and single-use weapons to date. Because they can't operate at low speeds, they're carried aloft and to speed by rocket boosters that are dropped before the scramjet powers on, and because they can't fly slow enough to land, they're single-use platforms. They usually just crash. But a combined cycle engine promises to take hypersonic aviation out of the realm of single-use weapons and stick it right in the far more practical world of reusable aircraft. In its simple form, a combined cycle engine just puts these two types of engines together into a single system, so it can use a turbofan or turbojet for low-speed takeoff and landing operations, and a high-speed ramjet or scramjet to scream across the sky at speeds in excess of Mach 5. Now, if that sounds familiar to you, it may be because this was the propulsion method used in Top Gun Maverick for the Dark Star, which was a fictional hypersonic aircraft that was actually designed and built with the help of Lockheed Martin's legendary Skunk Works. Now, you may recall we were actually the first to break the story that the Dark Star mock-up proved so believable that Jerry Bruckheimer claimed American officials told him Chinese intelligence satellites were reoriented to get a closer look. Of course, that might also have something to do with the clear similarities between the fictional Dark Star and Lockheed Martin's now very secretive SR-72 effort. A reusable aircraft that can achieve these speeds would be just as difficult to shoot down as modern hypersonic missiles are, and obviously they could have a wide variety of applications for America's defense apparatus. Many of those applications fall within the area of responsibility for General Baylor's old stomping ground at the Air Force Command and Control and ISR Center.
From a Corvair standpoint, there were some really interesting parts that, I'm an engineer and scientist, so I looked at this sort of thing. Let's talk about the speed first. First of all, in the book, it talks about how it broke all the SR-71 records and so on and so forth. But don't forget, there was no human being inside of it. That's the one triumph that the SR has, and for 50 years, no one's been able to break that record.
To save video games, she had to become video games. Ezreal is video
Welcome to Summoner's Rift.
I always know a shortcut.
30 seconds until minions spawn.
And my boots are not waterproof. Fantastic.
Minions have spawned.
This reminds me of discovering the spirit tomb of Ekron. Sounds dangerous. I'm in. Look better just a little bit. So, Pecan, how serious are you about it? Nope, I did not sign up for this level. Another day, another bullseye. Talk at this.
First blood.
Demacia, Jero Lightfeather, Sentinel of Light, 8th Order. He's a national hero. Those are right. If no one tells you something's impossible, then it's still possible. So go do it.
Slain 10 times the asking price. An enemy has been slain. An ally has been slain.
I don't read books about the world. I go out there and see it for myself. I'm always open to new ideas. Why do I do this?
Turret plating will soon fall.
Tell me the odds. I dare you.
An enemy has been slain.
I rarely know what I'm looking for, but I always find it.
Has destroyed a turret.
Blasting gauntlet. Once it's a ruin, I can legally move. I never miss.
But
An enemy has been slain.
No way to predict the twists and turns ahead. That's why I win it.
Shut down.
Use the map.
An ally has been slain. Your team has destroyed a turret.
I'm allergic to coffee. God, get this! I can't get hauled into Wizard Court again. Technically, I don't have to do it.
An enemy has been slain. Your team has destroyed a turret.
I'll make this look easy. Blasting gauntlet. I always know a shortcut. Water's cold. Ah! Something touched my foot! Ha! Marvelous that! Cheryl like feather never gives up. You learned that from me.
An enemy has been slain. Godlike.
Did I say my name before this?
Legendary.
Sounds dangerous. I'm in.
Your team has destroyed a turret. Your team has destroyed a turret. Killing spree.
Just call this a warlock exit.
has destroyed an inhibitor.
I'll handle this.
Your team has destroyed a turret. Shut down. Your team has destroyed a turret. Legendary.
I hope that wasn't a world.
Your team has destroyed an inhibitor.
Don't attempt anything glorious in my office. That belongs in a museum. I won't say anything.
Oh my god.
Demacia's warm.
Your team has destroyed an inhibitor.
Marvel at that!
No.
Has destroyed a turret. Your team has destroyed a turret.
I really hope nobody saw that. The beaten path is a boring path. God, take this!
Godlike.
All skill. Sorry. What's your weak spot?
Has been slain. A summoner has disconnected. Victory!
It's an unmanned vehicle, okay, but it's going to travel 3 times the speed of sound. The SR going, I said 3, I meant 5 times the speed of sound. The SR going 3.3 creates about, averages 700 degrees on the airplane all over the place. And in the cockpit, by those 2-inch windows, about 622 degrees. That's pretty hot. You know, you're in the hottest oven in the world flying up there. Now let's go to Mach 5. Mach 5 now, the skin temperature is going to be 1800 to 2000 degrees. Now, the challenges of keeping a human alive in that is going to be really hard. Keeping the airplane from burning up is going to be really hard. So we have to go out and invent things like really high temperature resistant plastics, the right kind of fuel to do it, and the aerodynamics, the navigation, all that goes with it. But I think scientifically this is going to be a challenge because going that fast creates all that heat. It's going to be looking like a meteorite coming in the atmosphere. And IR will pick that up from a long, long ways away. But it's going to happen really